Hi, my name is Bruce Bolger, and I'm the founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance. And we're a 16-year-old organization dedicated to what you might call total quality management in people. And that is achieving your organization's purpose, goals, objectives, and values through a strategic and systematic approach to all your stakeholders. And that's a lot of words. So we're all dedicated to how companies make that happen at the most organic and specific level, both for the CEOs and for meeting planners, sales, marketing, HR. It's all about aligning everybody's interests. In any case, so today we're talking about meaningful meetings, or we're in the Meaningful Meetings program with Waldo Waldman. And anybody who's attended a conference over the last 20 years, I have a feeling has probably seen Waldo. So it's really fun to meet him. And we're going to learn all about really what he's learned from his decades of experience, both as a fighter pilot serving our nation and a speaker, but also a business executive. So we're going to learn all about that. And then, of course, we have Jackie Baskow. She's my co-host or our co-host, and she's CEO and founder of Baskow Talent. And just about anybody in the meetings and incentives business or talent business in Vegas knows Jackie's. So just we always want to thank the companies. These are the companies we do business with. They're not necessarily supporters. They're our customers and companies along the way that we've helped or that have paid us money. We always like to thank them. And then finally, we're stakeholder capitalists. We give everything away. The playbook is free. How do you want to implement total quality management? You don't have to buy any of it, but we've got a lot of stuff for free and we're proud to share it. And we're proud to have experts like Jackie and Waldo. So I'm now going to stop this share with a little bit of, uh, excuse me, I'm having a little technical problem here, folks. Bear with me. Stop the share. There we go. So anyway, thank you so much, Waldo and Jackie, for taking 30 minutes out of your time today to talk about how we can improve business through better leadership, more systematic leadership. Waldo, let's get to your background as a fighter pilot. How important is it to have a system? To actually not only have leadership principles, which we all may have learned, but actually having a system. How important is that?
Well, I always say, wingman never wing it. You don't fly by the seat of your pants. You can't lead or sell or run a meeting by the seat of your pants. I think those that do very well are process focused. They have a plan. They contingency plan. We always ask what if before we take off and fly. I mean, in meetings and any type of industry, you always have to have those contingencies and confidence and courage and skills and your ability to serve is a byproduct of that preparation. So having a plan, having a process that's tried and true, that leverages tools and technologies. I always like to say, hey, you got to be mission ready, right? Confident in your skills and your technology. So it's mission critical and it's always
Hey, you know
relevant.
what? Put that slide back for one moment. I think it
Sure.
makes a funny point. Thanks for having it. Folks, look at all the buttons on that. Look at all the things he or his fellow pilots are watching, right? Let's move on to how important it is to be watching the right things. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And so, I show that cockpit, especially when you look at uh, digitization, bolting on new weapon systems to your industry. Zoom wasn't as relevant, or Teams or GoToMeetings or whatever wasn't as relevant as it is now since the pandemic. So we had to pivot when this external threat came. We're operating a new environment. We need to bolt on new technologies and have systems. For example, this is Stream Deck that I use, and I show photos and videos with one tap of a button. I did not use this 4 years ago. And so when we went through this disruption called COVID, and when there will be future disruptions in the industry, you must leverage these tools and technologies and go through this discomfort to get these processes under your belt. And that's one of the things I discuss in addition to the obviously human element. You've got to be relevant because if you're not leveraging those tools and processes, somebody else will. And hey, it's a slow, insidious descent to irrelevance these days, right?
Well, let's get into that, Jackie. That's very interesting because I'm going to ask you, you've been doing this for more years than you like to probably admit. And you want the thing I know about you is you want meaning, and that means relevance.
Yeah.
Relevance. So, what are you finding today? Like Waldo, what we're going to delve into with Waldo, when you recommend him to a client, right? What is it, this general importance of relevance today? And is it overlooked? Do clients today sometimes really overlook the relevance of a story? Is that decision made too quickly?
I think that, first of all, when I hire Waldo for something, what I love about him, he talks all about leadership and who's your wingman, who's got your back in business, because most people want to stab you in the back and get ahead of you instead of working with you as a team. And he talks about, he brings that group together as a team in the room and trying to get everything together business wise. So they become one. Leadership is the first thing that I think we've talked on other podcasts. When I'll walk into either a business or I'll walk into a fast food restaurant, just say, and you walk in there, they don't even know their website. Everything starts with the leader. And if you don't have a great leader, you don't have a great team.
So I'm going to ask you, bringing into the nitty gritty about these things, Walter. One of the questions, get ready, is what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from this journey? So get ready, but I want to prep you with some others first.
Sure.
How many companies, you do a ton of public speaking, and I can already tell you're a nice person like I am, and no one wants to ever say mean things about anybody. But when you really think about the way businesses are run, the way Jackie just alluded to, in terms of really valuing people like our wingmen, right? I saw you, I was one of your first listeners. I saw you and I were just chatting about how I was there at in your early years of your career. How much does business really changed in your overall view and understanding the importance of your philosophy of valuing everybody on the team and synchronizing and harmonizing their interests?
Well, and I appreciate the kind sentiments, and I go way back with Jackie. There's nobody better in the business when it comes to relationships and ultimately having the clients and needs in mind, right? She's not just filling slots. Like, you want to make sure that the right speaker, the right thought leader, the content aggregator is in alignment with the association or company or whatever they're doing. And so that's relevance, right? We have an objective, we've got issues and challenges. Look, in 2002, when I first started, we were sending faxes. We sure as heck didn't have Zoom meetings. I had VHS tapes to show my demos. I was mailing things out. Now everything's digitized. But there are also fundamental universal truths that we as human beings must underscore, embrace, enlighten, and maintain relevance in this artificial intelligence world where we can have, I was at the National Speakers Association convention recently, and we had an avatar, like a graphic image, a virtual image of a speaker on stage who could be in a totally different country speaking and still, quote unquote, connecting with the audience. Me, I like to see people's faces. I want to see their eyes. I want to talk with them before. I want to know what's going on. Like, look, we just had the hurricane here in the southeast. Like 30 miles away, they've just had this chemical explosion in a water facility. They're canceling meetings and soccer practice in school because there's these chemicals whirling around. I don't even have my air conditioner on in this office. I'm sweating my tail off in my onesie. Hey, show must go on. Ukraine, the Israel war, the upcoming election. If you're not bringing relevance and leadership principles that Jackie was talking about into the forefront to make it relevant about that day, that morning, that hour, then I think you're losing out on an opportunity to create a synapse and drive home meaning as people pivot and adapt in the world. And when I say that as well, it's also, my child just was in a hospital for a few weeks, not to get too personal, but he had an autoimmune issue, suffered a bit, and now he's doing really, really well. There are people in the audiences who've cousins and loved ones may have gotten a cancer sentence, who've just been through a divorce, who are afraid of their jobs because of automation and digitization and artificial intelligence that may take away their jobs. So if you spew philosophies and analogies that aren't relevant to what's really going on in the hearts and heads of the audience, you're also missing out on an opportunity to create that emotional, experiential connection that can't be done by anyone else. And you decommoditize yourself as a planner, as a thought leader like you, Bruce, and as a speaker and thought leader like me. So relevance, it goes in the DNA and heart and soul of the individuals in that audience, what's going on in the world today on a macro level and also on a company level. You know, if a company just went through an acquisition or they
Hey,
went,
I have to stop you because
right?
there are two big headlines here. No, there are two very big headlines here that are big ahas for me. One of them is the importance of relevance, and the other one is the importance of authenticity. And I want to delve into this. And Jackie, you're next on this actually, because Jackie, listening to him, here's what's coming out of this to me. First off, this whole idea of relevance. You can have the best marketing plan, the best what you think is the best idea, even the best team, but you could all be sitting around the table and drinking your own wine, and it really isn't relevant. And it's just, Waldo said, it's pretty easy today to be irrelevant when people have so many pressing things in their life, worried about their job, and you're talking about the vision of the company. So, a company just laid off 5,600 people, and we're having our national sales meeting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, come on, right? So Jackie, and then the other thing that Waldo raises is this issue of authenticity. You think about it, I don't believe anything. I'm done believing anything unless it's totally validated. Nothing. I don't believe anything. My wife might even say something to kids. What? No. Who said it? Where's this come from? And anything people are already admitting on LinkedIn that they are using bots and all this stuff, which immediately says, okay, you don't talk to me. I'm not interested. And I use AI all the time. But Jackie, this issue of relevance we kind of touched on, and I want to, so I really want to focus on authenticity. This issue of, aren't meetings in an ironic way going to become more important because it's the only way I really know that the wingman is talking?
Absolutely. You know, I'm old school meets new school. I believe in face to face. When I hire Waldo and Waldo's out there, I always want to go see him, and not because we're on this interview here today. He motivates me, he motivates me for my company, not just the company that we've hired him for. And he takes it to the next level. Not only does he give a great keynote and he's interaction and he brings teams together in the room, but after, on the last one we did, he put information out there for people to fill out and to approach him. And he's approachable and wants to be interactive with the people that were in the room that heard him, because he wants results and follow-up. And I think that's so important. Most speakers go out there, they speak, they do their keynote, they're done. With Waldo, what I found is he wants to take it to the next level. He makes himself available. And in this day and age, a lot of people do not make themselves available. They're there, they're in, they're out, it's done.
Well, I want to get to this because everything's about value creation today. Waldo, this whole idea of that you were getting to about using systems, and you mentioned two dimensions, right? You mentioned the technology, always being open to new technologies and
Right.
weaving them together, the cockpit, right? But then secondly, people. So I'm going to get back to you and press you a little bit. I'm not going to let you be a politician because I know you're a bright man, an honest man. Are we leaving value on the table at companies? Are we really doing a great job on average? In your experience, and you probably get better than average service because you're a frequent flyer or whatever. But Jackie, getting back to Jackie's point, are companies leaving value on the table by not energizing their employees, their customers, their supply chain? And look in the military, the importance of every single person down to the guy or lady who moves the chocks, right? Everybody is mission critical. Are we doing that in business as well as we can? Have you seen a big change in 25 years? And this is only meant to be constructive because we're all about, hey, it's total quality management. We can solve this.
Right. So it goes back to what Jackie was mentioning before about leadership. And I think culture is a very, very important word, and it's being used a lot more today. I call it the blood and DNA of an organization, and I think that blood and heart is more important than the muscle and head. That ability to connect and be relevant, not from just content standpoint, but as leaders, as business owners and corporations who are trying to create a value proposition in some commoditized industries, that connection and authenticity and leading by creating and engaging each other. You know, you'll see a little graphic here, a person coaching, a fighter pilot coaching another person. You've got to be able to coach and mentor and lift and engage and understand the issues and blood and DNA of the individuals. So if you're a sales manager running a sales meeting virtually or in person, and engaging those folks, if you're just depending, for example, on just the speaker to engage and not having each other engage, and you as the leader creating moments where you're connecting authentically with the individuals, understanding what they value, what's the culture in their life, what they believe in, what their heart's desires are and fears are, then we're also missing out in the engagement. So back to what you were saying, Bruce, we are missing out on engagement if we're commoditizing and we're just spewing information, trying to go for the lowest hanging fruit. But when we're relevant with the industries that we're serving, when we understand what is that true, what do our customers really, really want? Like our customer for Jackie and I are, what is it? What do they really want in that audience? And the planners, and most importantly, the executives, what do they want? And I'll just give you an example. If I'm speaking for a sales team for an individual company, the relevance in that culture is about understanding their specifics, their competition, their challenges, their fears that are going on with ABC company, right? Maybe they went through a divestiture, an acquisition, or a layoff. But if we're speaking for an association, we may have competitors in the room, different companies, they may not even know each other. So how do you get them talking? Sharing best practices, networking at the bar, at the golf course, or at the spa, or during the social session. Relevance comes to understanding what's really going on in the seats and in the hearts of those people. And for a sales meeting or an association meeting, very, very different many times. And so speakers or companies serving those or whatever, right? Hey, how do we make it relevant during a seminar, at a conference in Vegas, or when I'm running a small 20-person meeting in Boca Raton, Florida, where we're gonna have a good time, and it's an incentive program for my top sales leaders. Relevance and it has to be
Well, I
really
have to
down to
interrupt
that
you
level.
again because to summarize a key point, harmonizing interests. What you're saying here is you're telling a story, Jackie, isn't he? That in a sense, a meeting is an opportunity to get everybody on the same page. Or some people call it the same song sheet. And in fact, that leads to a question for you, Waldo, because you've seen there are two areas where you really see engagement. Mission critic, is in war and in politics. In business, you can get away with murder, but you can't get away with murder in a battle situation, nor in politics. At the end of the day, you're going to win or lose. So,
Sure.
Jackie, this whole idea of using meetings to harmonize interests, isn't that the magic where everybody comes? Before they didn't really know, huh? What? It's like a politician. Who is this person? What? And then at the end of that 3-day meeting, they're going, yeah, I get him now. This is it. And here's how I can help. Is that the magic that can happen in an effectively designed meeting, Jackie?
Absolutely. There's nothing like walking into a room, sitting down, you're expecting the same old speaker, and somebody comes out, and immediately you feel their energy, you feel their authenticity, you feel that they're there to bring this group together. And Waldo makes everybody feel like he's speaking to them personally, and he is. And even though there could be 1,000 people or 100 people in a room, everybody feels like they've been personally touched. And you have to have your ROI. What is the ROI from hiring a speaker coming into a room? I'll give you an example. The Wynn Hotel, they have everybody, the customer service is consecutive, from valet to customer service to, sales and catering. Everything there is a 10. And why? Because they've trained, it's their leadership there. Like when Waldo walks into a room and he starts speaking, that's what he's trying to create. He's trying to create unity in that room. And instead of everybody being on their own page, he's trying to get everybody on the same page.
Well, Waldo, let's get into that a little bit. In your experience, And I know that everybody who's been in action doesn't want to talk about it, so I'm not going to ask you about that kind of thing. But I am going to ask you your overall, what you've learned about the importance of an overall commitment and buy-in in performance, in success, in actual field. Is there an increment when we see one team in sports win and another one lose, when they have amazing people? What is the people? Is it all luck at the end of the day, or is there a real people, culture, leadership issue that makes, look, anyone can get, I could die tomorrow. No matter how good I am, anything, any action leads to a reaction, which can include death. So that's not the only measure, but overall, in terms of your experience, how important is an enterprise level of engagement a critical opportunity?
When you look at successful teams, successful organizations, and I was just at the Win recently, and you're spot on. And Jackie, they know the type of client, they're relevant to the type of client. The most important thing to that client walking in the door may not necessarily be winning on a $5 blackjack table. I don't think there are any at Win. It's what's the best possible meal I can have at this hotel? Get me the best possible service at the spa, right? Like the spa at the Win is amazing. Like, so it's relevant to the type of demographic and culture of the person walking in the door. And they train to that. And that's why we're successful in the type of meetings that we have. But going back to great teams, Bruce, and great leaders, my son is 13, a big soccer player. His team didn't do that well initially because they didn't know each other. They were a combination of two different soccer teams that came together. And they were just messing up, getting their butts kicked. They started doing a lot more practice. They got to know each other a lot, a little socializing, a little connecting, and they started gelling. The chemistry of the team, due to the leader getting them to interact, putting them in the right position, getting them to get to know each other, they started gelling and getting better. Now, same thing can happen in an organization. Great salespeople, if they don't interact well and communicate with marketing or IT, et cetera, if there are silos built and they don't collaborate and what I call it, cross-pollinate their ideas and acumen and insights, we got blind spots, right? Every group has a blind spot. Soccer players have blind spots they may not see, but a teammate, marketing, IT, sales, et cetera, they're backing each other up, which is part of a culture. So you have individual fighter pilots who are doing great, individual managers, leaders, marketing, sales, whatever. But until they start gelling, until the culture and collaboration piece happens, it's difficult to take it to the next level and grow and evolve and adapt to different competitors. So great companies start with great individuals, great leaders that Jackie was mentioning, who have courage and passion and responsibility and skills and processes. And then the next level is, hey, now we've got our teammates. We're encouraging each other. We're backing each other up. We're checking each other's six that I mentioned. Now we're doing better. So it's a combination of both. And if you're not marinating the steak of those individual elements, getting them to know each other, finding the strengths and weaknesses, then you're not going to be able to capitalize on the Lionel Messi players of your organizations. And great companies have great teammates.
Well, then here's another, gosh, this is really, I'm having a great day, Waldo, with this. Because what really, though, you're saying is that in this game, in this playbook, we know how to do it, right? You've just laid out the framework, right? You've laid out, there's a paradigm for a great team, but we've been talking about for 30 years and it isn't happening, right? In many
It's happening, Bruce. It's happening, not as much as it could be or should be, but it's happening. I
Oh, I
talk to
agree. No. I didn't remember. I've been at it longer than you, but you're
yes,
absolutely
sir.
right. I've never seen greater progress actually right now. But and in fact, some people say that for those who use baseball as an image, that we're around in the fourth inning. So no, it's happening. But for someone who's been doing it since 1989, who saw you when you started your business career, or your speaking career, So I want to ask you one practical thing. But in fact, we're running out of time. I'm going to skip to this most important
Yes,
question.
sir.
You've done this for you've served our country in an incredibly complex systems oriented system that involved people and systems technology. Sounds like you've raised a family. Sounds like you've launched a business. I wanted to talk a little bit about your work in the human capital advisory area and how you got into that. And we'll put that into the article. What are some, if you were on an airplane with a young lady who asked you, Waldo, what are the big lessons, or a young man or whatever, what are the big lessons you've learned in life that I could apply to business and to my life? Is there anything you could kind of say in pretty quickly to somebody that we can share here?
Yes, sir. First and foremost, uh, the ability to ask for help. Elizabeth Dole, when she ran the Red Cross, she said, I didn't wait for the rivers to flood before I built relationships. I need help, and Mayday, Mayday are the most important words you can have in business and life. And what I would tell a young lady, and the reason why I think Jackie is so successful, is that she gives her wings away. You've got to nurture relationships with folks by giving value, not just for a paycheck, but just know it's your responsibility to lift others up, to encourage and to coach and mentor and help others in need, so that ideally, when you need them and the missiles and challenges do come, you can build a repertoire of Top Gun wingmen and wingmams who you can who are on your team. And so having the courage and transparency to ask for help, because nobody knows everything these days, and confidence comes when all you need to do is pick up the phone. And I bet you as well, Bruce, in your industry, because you're a kind guy too, and build relationships. Hey, you're only one Mayday call away. So that's number one. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but don't wait to build those relationships when you need them. Do it now when things are good. The second thing is, when it comes to human capital and building relationships in a company or out, is, you know, on the ladder of life, I think you have to have a hand up, like reaching up to the person, the guy or gal, a few levels above you, few rungs above you. You could say, hey man, help me. How do you mentor me? You know, coach me to the next level, and build those relationships, and have the courage to connect and ask for help with those as well. But also to have your hand down at the same time to say, hey, you know, as a member of my association, as somebody who's successful in building relationships, let me find those folks who are struggling, who have engine failures or in the dungeon of doubt, and find folks who are continuously there for you to coach. And that's why Jackie is such a mentor, and so are you. You're lifting people up. So those are two things that are really important. And then last and not least, it's the things you do outside your cockpit that have just as much of an impact as when you're in the cockpit flying. I meditated this morning. I did yoga. I connected with my wife. Good coffee also helps, right? So tell me what you're doing outside of work. What are your habits and disciplines and passions that build the horsepower and acumen and confidence in you that may have nothing to do with sales meetings or digitization or artificial intelligence? So, you know, Jim Rohn, the famous philosopher, said, work harder on yourself than you do on the job. And Lord knows these days, with work-life balance and mental health issues, we have to be very cognizant of what we're putting in our ears, our eyes, and our mouths, so that we build that horsepower and resilience so we can serve others in these turbulent times.
Well, I love it. Folks, if you want to summarize, pay it forward is what you're saying, and help up and help down without asking for a return. Be authentic. So Jackie, let's relate this to lessons that companies can implement by bringing in Waldo or these types of approaches, because really the big lesson here is also relevance. Kind of how important do you think it is now for meeting planners? And then Waldo, you're going to have the last word on how meeting planners can take this wisdom and make it truly three-dimensional, so that when I walk out, and you know, maybe one of the ways is to give everybody a 3-minute clip of that video too, to remind us. But and that's a whole nother discussion, don't have time. But how important is it, do you think, or the opportunity is for meeting planners today to really shake it up, focus on relevance, focus on experience, focusing on what cannot be done in a room, as Andrea Doyle at Skift Meetings likes to say. It cannot be done in a Zoom. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, when you're talking about relevance, I think that sometimes we go back to our old habits. And I think that A lot of companies depend on one person, like maybe their top producer. Like Waldo said, never fly solo. You need a backup plan in business. You have to have a team, and it can't be about just one person controlling your business. I had that happen a couple of years ago. And when you have one person that you count on, it's not healthy. It's just not good. So we need to be relevant. We need to do things that are very, very important, like creating teams, having a backup plan, and never depending on one thing.
So thank you. So Waldo, to wrap up, what kind of recommendations would you make to, if I were going to bring you in? I know you're a terrific speaker. I've seen you, but if I were going to have a half day with you, what are ways that an organization can really use you to harmonize interest? Whether, to your point, it's within the team, or it's an association. Always being mindful, of course, that some bad things may be happening, right? We might just have had to lay off a bunch of people. Right. So what tips can you give people quickly as the last word in this?
So I always say we want to create an experience, not just a keynote or a seminar, right? You want to create an experience, and people remember experiences because of the way they feel and the relationships they've had and the emotional context. I think there has to be texture in a meeting, emotion, people laughing, crying, serious, intense. Fear is okay once in a while as long as it's combined with a little bit of love, right? And so make sure that your speaker, in my opinion, has this emotional allure that can create that in the crowd because it's the marinade to learning. Also, I think, PowerPoint could be overused, but if you can use it in the right way, a graphic, a video, an image that says 1,000 words, right? Um, when you're maybe interacting with an audience and connecting with them and asking specific questions, getting them involved, or potentially, hey, let's do a keynote followed by a leadership panel led by the keynote. Um, how do you prep the meeting, right? Hey, sometimes getting butts in seats is a big issue for a lot of these planners and managers, right? So how do we come up with a unique video that gets them excited? It's like going to Disney World for a lot of these folks. Part of the excitement and fun is the planning and the lead up to that meeting and at the JW Marriott in San Antonio or in San Diego when there's a Top Gun theme. So how do you marinate it on the front? And then also, what are some of the takeaways that Jackie was mentioning before? I do these challenge coins like that. If you don't have at the bar, you got to buy. Like this was for Stryker. I did Dell Technologies at Dell World. They have that at Vegas a lot. So we create these coins that are customized, and they get it at the end of the meeting. And guess what? They're slapping it down. And if you don't have it, you're buying drinks or lunch, and that could be slapped down a month or 6 months later. A follow-up webinar, a follow-up video summary that's on social media to keep the excitement alive. All these things, and Jack is an expert at this as well, make it more than just a slot of content. It's an experience that's prepped on the front that makes it fun and engaging and relevant during it. And then afterwards, brings them back to that meeting and reminds them of what they learned, the people that they met, and the objectives that they're looking to accomplish.
Well, this is so perfect. I'm going to go over one last thing with a touchy subject. A positive one, because again, we're only about solutions. I don't need to hear about a problem. Let's talk solutions. I'm sorry. But a lot of times companies are going through tough times. So they've had to make tough
Right.
decisions. And they wonder what to do, right? And I have my views, but when a company's going through a tough time, right, and they're handling their national sales meeting, what is your advice to CEOs when they say, look, we just laid off 4,000 people or something like that? And we have to be sensitive to that or we're not relevant, right? What is your recommendation?
You're asking me on this one?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
Jackie, I'm taking you off the hook on that one.
yeah, well, number one, don't baloney your employees. They got to hear the truth from you. And if they feel that the wool's being pulled over their eyes, they're going to disrespect you. I speak for a lot of big companies, and I may have to go on after the executive talks about the layoff or the new compensation plan change or the new acquisition that may displace some of these folks and these melding of two cultures or potentially a company being bought by private equity, right? Happens a lot. The consolidation in the industry is very relevant. So don't BS them, be honest with them, let them know. build their confidence with some of your tools and processes, right? Saying, hey, now we're going private. We're going to have new resources. We've got new technologies. But also let them know that discomfort is part of the process. That if you're not relevant, if you're not hitting your numbers, and if you're not accommodating the needs of this evolving capitalistic company in some way, my capitalism is a blessing as long as it's run by good, honest, caring people, as
Well
opposed to
said.
butt heads, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Well said.
if I was a leader, I'd say, look, some people are going to be let go. But for those of you who continuously be relevant, who put in the work, who are willing to sacrifice and bring value to the table, you will be here, but we need to hear from you as well. You gotta let those young folks or the fearful ones communicate with the managers and leaders and say, look, here's what we need. Here's what we're afraid of us. Help make things right. And part of the breakouts and part of the messaging should be, here's how we can accomplish it. And if you don't do this, these are the consequences. And look, it's just the nature of the world. If you either assimilate and adapt or you starve. And it's an
Well, there are no
unfortunate reality.
guarantees. Alas, there are no guarantees. But as you said, if we have a good heart, the trade-offs, there's always going to be trade-offs in business, right, Jackie? There are always
Absolutely.
trade-offs. You can never live without trade-offs. But if you have, and I'll leave you with the last word, Jackie, it seems to me that if our organizations, if we are transparent about our purpose, right? What we're trying to achieve. What are our objectives, folks? What are our values? What do we stand for? We know there are going to be times we have to lay people to survive, but if we're, isn't it true, Jackie, that the people that are the most fun to do business with, bad things may happen, but at least they're straight with you.
Yes. It's funny that we have this discussion because yesterday I was with a friend of mine and a big walk that was held in Vegas. And she told me that her network that she works for is getting rid of the network. And there's a whole big change in the world with television. And her boss was sitting there and told everybody she's looking for another job. So the people that were there, everybody felt uncomfortable. So now everybody's discussing that they're looking for another job. Instead of giving comfort and giving a solution, like how can we work? Let's get our numbers up there. So we give relevance to what we're doing. They gave fear to everybody that was there yesterday. I was like in shock hearing this. And they're talking about how they want to go to another city and get a job. So as Waldo said, you have to give that comfort level. You have to give that encouragement to people, because if you don't, you could have an entire walkout on a team. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing to me, what's going to change, and there's only one thing, it's going to really change it, is investors, because and actual economics, when CEOs and investors realize that this is costing them money, that having all of these unhappy people, customers, employees, and share is actually when they can see. So on Wednesday, we're having a show with the founders of Irrational Capital, who have a very successful, Waldo, you might be interested in it, a method for actually evaluating whether companies have high levels of employee engagement, and their the stock fund run based on it is outperforming its indices, its benchmarks by 3 to 4% a year. That's an alpha. So that, to me, in the end of the day, when it becomes inexcusable to run organizations that way because investors say, hey, wait a minute, you're wasting my money, that to me will be a big driver. But we still need to know how to do it. We need to know why, and then we need to know how. So Waldo, Jackie, thank you so much for contributing to the how part of the story. And also the wisdom, Waldo, when you see the story about this, because most of our people will actually read the article. They don't necessarily have time to watch the whole show. You're going to see wisdom, a lot of wisdom, authenticity through AI, how you can use events to harmonize interests, the importance of relevance. You could have the greatest idea on earth, but its time may not have come, right, Waldo?
Yeah.
Its time may not have come, but if you hang in there, maybe it will. So anyway, folks, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to sharing all the wisdom here today.
Enjoyed it.
So much.